Welcome to this episode of Eureka. We are going to have a really wonderful conversation with Dr. Balram Bhargava. He is the Director of Indian Council for Medical Research. We are going to discuss with him about his specialty, cardiology, some of his devices that he has been developing, and the Project Delhi, and also what are the major challenges for health in India in this episode. Before we continue this conversation, let's have a quick look at his brief profile. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to have a very interesting conversation.
Dr. Balram Bhargava is an outstanding cardiologist and one of the foremost leaders in biomedical innovation, public health, medical education and medical research. Presently, he is the Director General in the Indian Council of Medical Research. Prior to his appointment at ICMR, he was a professor of cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. Born in 1961, Dr. Bhargava hails from New Delhi. He graduated in medicine and went on to secure MD and DM with specialization in cardiology. Professor Bhargava has excellent leadership qualities and has established School of International Biodesign. The school has trained several young innovators in frugal medical technology innovation and has contributions to Startup India and Skill India programs. It has also developed 30 low-cost medical devices leading to 10 startups. Professor Bhargava has also developed indigenous low-cost coronary stents and has founded the Society for Less Investigative Medicine. His indigenously platinum iridium coil coronary stent has been widely recognized and has also been instrumental in clinically evaluating and establishing the use of 2 other laser-cut medicated Indian stents. These low-cost indigenous stents have benefited several thousand patients. The philosophy of the program has been more for less for more, with a mandate to promote global affordable need-driven healthcare innovation. Among many noted national and international awards, the Government of India rewarded Dr. Bhargava with Padma Shri in 2014 for his contribution to the field of medicine.
Thank you, sir, for being with us. It's a very, very wonderful opportunity. You have been a cardiologist in All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Before this, you have done many work. One of your major area has been something called as biodesign. You also founded this Stanford India Biodesign Center, right? So what does this biodesign mean?
Yes, that has been one of my passionate things over the last, say 12 years or so. We had first stent was developed in the 80s, mid-80s in Switzerland, and then it was marketed in India in the early 90s, and it was very, very horribly expensive. So in 1997, I, along with a jeweler friend, developed a platinum iridium stent myself, and we implanted it in animals and found it to be effective. Okay. And then we thought that we need to innovate ourselves. As Indians, we are genetically endowed to be innovative, to think low cost, and to innovate. So in 2007, we started a program with the Indian Institute of Technology, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and the Stanford University, a program called Biodesign, wherein we have doctors, engineers, designers, and entrepreneurs. They form a team of 4 or 5 people, and they are immersed in the hospital. In the developed world of India, in the developed hospitals, and in the underdeveloped in the villages, primary health centers also. And they spend about 2 to 3 months just noting down what are the needs. Okay. And each one of them come out with about 400 or 500 unmet clinical needs. And then they solve their problem from an engineering perspective and are mentored by doctors that this design is okay, this is better, this could be better. And by the end of about 1 year, they have a simple prototype and a patent.
Okay. This philosophy is, you say that it's Gandhian, which is also an acronym.
Yes, this philosophy is Gandhian because the initial Stanford's thinking was to talk of high-end robotics and artificial intelligence and, you know, get that. But I felt that for a country like India, we need to develop very low-cost, frugal medical devices or affordable medical devices, and we named we gave an acronym to the program called Gandhi. So Gandhi is Global Affordable Need-Driven Healthcare Innovation. GANDHI. Global Affordable Need-Driven Healthcare Innovation.
So there are three words here: global, affordable, and need-driven. So how is it fitting with your idea?
So our idea was to develop low-cost medical devices, frugal medical devices, which are useful for our country. And ultimately, they will also be useful if a new IP is created. They will be useful for the Western world also, because they are also struggling with the costs of healthcare, whether it be the United States, the Obamacare or the Trump care or whatever you call it, and also the United Kingdom. The NHS is struggling with the costs, and so is Europe. So most parts of the world are struggling with the costs of medical devices.
Perhaps, for example, in the drug, India is called as the pharmacy of the world. For example, underdeveloped countries actually depend on India's production. So similarly, for example, here, perhaps our innovation can help the world in that sense.
Exactly,
also, right?
exactly. The philosophy was to ignite this thinking of developing low-cost medical devices, taking a cue from the affordable medicines that India has been called as the pharmacy of the world, where, as you very rightly said, 60% of the generic medical medicines in the United States are of Indian origin.
See, one problem that people have when we talk about low cost, affordable, is that, oh, it is cheap, means that it may not be quality.
Yes, and that is exactly the philosophy and the myth that I would like to break, that these are low cost devices, but they are high quality. Low cost yet high quality, so that they are useful not only India but the whole world, not only the developing world but also the developed world, and a new IP is created, so it is useful in the developed world also.
So this program we have been conducting for some years now. So what's the output? I mean,
very good question to judge the output. See, over the last 10 years, we've been running this program for the last 10 years, and typically we are training about 10 to 12 people every year. And these are youngsters who could be engineers, who could be doctors, who could be designers. So in this span of 10 years, we have trained about 120 young innovators. These young innovators have developed about 14 startups.
okay.
Yes, but startup is good, but startup with one device is it's a lean startup. Having said that, they have also been able to develop about 14 or 15 medical devices, out of which 5 are in the Indian market.
Okay.
And one of them is US FDA approved. And these are very simple devices, mechanical devices, which replace a lot of things. And I can give you examples. So I think typical example is a cardboard splint. Now this cardboard splint is a unique splint in the sense that we have about, say, 15 million road traffic accidents every year in our country, out of which about 5 million are lower limb fractures. And they happen on the highways or on the roadside, and there is nothing to immobilize them before you take them to the hospital, other than the old First World War Thomas's knee splint, or splint made, or you take a piece of wood and then try a bandage and try to. So this is a splint made out of cardboard, coated with a special plastic. And it has Velcro tapes. So it has taken a cue again from the cricket pad.
Okay.
And it is right from the spine to the leg. You immobilize that leg with Velcro tapes. The same one can be inverted to mobilize the other leg if need be, depending. So the single one size for right and left leg. And then you can do your X-ray with it on, you can do your CT scan with it on, and remove it only in the operation theatre, and then throw it away. And it costs about 200 or 300 rupees only.
That's all.
Yeah, and
so that's where the affordability comes in.
Exactly, and the quality is there now, because it's a novel idea. It's quality. So this splint has been licensed out to Hindustan Latex Limited and is being marketed in different states in the country. Another interesting device which I would like to talk about is Conshore, which is a startup from our program, and they have developed a simple device for managing stool in incontinent patients. These are patients who are comatose or are in the intensive care units and cannot get up to pass stool, or they don't have, for urine you have a catheter that is internationally accepted, everyone use it. But for stool, there is nothing available in the world except diapers. So we have developed a self-expandable device which is made out of nitinol and can be put in the back passage of the patient by either the family member or the caregiver, and it expands inside and then it collects stool in a bag.
Okay.
And this device was conceived at All India Institute, was developed at All India Institute. The first in-man study was done in All India Institute of Medical Sciences along with our colleagues from the Trauma Center, from Neurology and Gastroenterology, and then it was scaled up and now manufacturing is being done and by the startup called Conshore International, and they have got US FDA approval. They are marketing it to about 60 hospitals in the US, and about the same number of hospitals in India are utilizing that product.
That's interesting, because this particular device that you talked about is also, actually, if you look deeply, is really Gandhian, because it gives you respect to the patient.
Absolutely.
The patient is not treated like...
thank you so much for thinking in that respect. It is absolutely, and in this 150th year of Gandhi, he was always very concerned about scavenging and taking care of the elderly, respect of the, so that I think it is absolutely in that order.
Very interesting. As a cardiologist, I think it's one question that most of our audience would certainly like to ask. Today, lots of news is coming that in India the cardiological issues are rising. Why do you think it has become a major issue?
See, what is the biggest problem in India is that cardiovascular diseases or heart attacks, as we speak, occur 10 years earlier than the Western world. So if the average age of a first heart attack in the United States or in Europe is about 63, 64 years, in India it is occurring at the age of 53, 54. So it is occurring 10 years earlier. Now why is it occurring 10 years earlier? Is because of, one is our genetic predisposition as Indians. Second is diabetes, which is a problem. And third is hypertension is a big problem in our, but that is there in the world over. High cholesterol is a problem in India as well as the world over. But the major problem is tobacco. The young heart attack patients that we are seeing are all mostly related to tobacco. If I am seeing a patient with a heart attack at the age of 32 or 27, I find that his arteries are absolutely clean, but he has a huge big clot lying in one of the arteries causing the heart attack, and he is most likely, on 99.9%, is a smoker or a tobacco chewer.
So one of the things that the people can do is avoid tobacco.
Avoid tobacco in every form. Whether it be smoked tobacco, which is come down in the Western world, it is also coming down in India, but smokeless tobacco or chewing tobacco is the biggest problem, and 90% of the chewing tobacco consumed in the world is in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and 70% India contributes to that. And an average, about 30% of our Indian population is a tobacco consumer.
So the general thought that stop smoking is not adequate. Actually, stop tobacco is actually the most important.
Stop tobacco chewing as well. Yes, that is the biggest problem.
That's an interesting point, and here is where we'll take a very short break. Keep watching Eureka. After the break, we are going to discuss about a very interesting project they are initiated, Delhi. Keep watching Eureka. We are going to discuss it after the break.
Ghata, one of the oldest and most unique percussion instruments of southern India. You can play it not only with your fingers, but palms, wrists and heels as well. You'll be surprised, but the air inside the ghatam reverberates, creating the musical notes. 5 elements of nature, earth, water, air, fire and space, make up the composition of this beautiful musical piece, which has found an apt place in most of the ancient books.
Welcome back to Eureka. We are having a very interesting conversation with Dr. Balram Bhargava. He is the Director of Indian Council of Medical Research, an organization under the Department of Health and Family Welfare of Government of India. So thank you. I mean, we have had a very, very interesting conversation in the first half. You have now taken up a new project called Delhi. It's been few years, and the name, it's an acronym, I can see that. But it's just a capital. So what is it actually?
Yes, that is I was actually very passionate about this program called Delhi, and I call it Mission Delhi, and this has been funded by the Indian Council of Medical Research as a project, and this is a pilot project wherein we are going to have motorcycle first responders for treating heart attack patients. Now,
Okay,
what is
so it means like it's not just that you order your food and it comes in your motorcycle, but some major health care can also be provided like that.
Exactly. So the acronym Delhi is Delhi Emergency Life Heart Attack Initiative.
Okay.
Yeah. So now how it is that we have set up a control room at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, again funded by the Indian Council of Medical Research, and that control room is like a call center.
Okay.
And this is a pilot study around 3 kilometers around the All India Institute of Medical Sciences with a geofencing with the CATS ambulance services. So we have an MOU with the CATS ambulance services for these patients. So now if within this 3 kilometers anyone has a heart attack, he rings up that number. It's not yet initiated, the whole project is started, we are going to inaugurate it very soon. Maybe this month or early next month we are going to inaugurate it. We are waiting for a date from the people who are going to inaugurate it. So once we get that, we inaugurate it. So if a person gets a heart attack, he rings up that dispatch center number, and immediately they ask a number of questions, what is kind of chest pain, how long, and all those things. And a motorcycle responder with 2 paramedics well trained in emergency resuscitation reach the site. Okay. And the idea is to reach under 10 minutes, within under 10 minutes. Now, you have to remember one thing, that if one develops a heart attack, the heart is like this little room. It is pumping blood out of the door to the entire body, but before it pumps out blood out of the door, it is supplying by 3 pipes to its own walls.
Yeah.
Though it won't. Now, if any one of those pipes gets blocked, that wall gets damaged. Now, once that wall is damaged or dead, you may put 10 pipes, it is not going to be revived. Yeah. So that pipe has to be opened very fast before that wall gets damaged. So the earlier the response, the best it is. And that is why the motorcycle responder, so that they can give medicine earlier. For a big country like India, we have to use what is called a Clot Buster medication, which is a medicine that immediately dissolves the clot. And that has been available for the last, and head to head if you compare angioplasty with Clot Buster, the results are, a difference is only of about 1%. A 1% difference in terms of.
So this actually brings a very important point, right? Like for example, when you talk about medical solution, it has to be context based.
Exactly.
What is being followed elsewhere cannot be just blindly copied.
Exactly, and that is what is happening, because that is an expensive treatment, doing balloon angioplasty, and this Clot Buster is much more inexpensive, and it can be given as earlier it was a drip over 1 hour, now it is a bolus injection. So they have also evolved over time in terms of the Clot Buster. So now we have this Clot Buster, which is again a generic one, Indian one, which we are testing, not testing, it is tested, well tested, but which we are using in this project.
Okay, in the pilot project you are going to work out.
In the pilot project which we are going. So what happens is that 2 motorcycle responders, in one motorcycle, 2 paramedics reach that site, they record an ECG and take the history a little bit, and that ECG is transmitted to our dispatch center.
Okay.
And once it's transmitted there and they say it is a definite heart attack, and they ask another set of 5 or 6 questions whether the Clot Buster can be given, because it cannot be given if there is a bleed in the brain earlier, or if there is active bleeding going on somewhere, because it is going to thin the blood. So that cannot be given at that. So those questions are asked, and that Clot Buster medication, under the supervision of the doctor connected virtually, it is given on site. By that time the CATS ambulance arrives, one of the paramedics accompanies that patient in, because he's treated him for the last 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and he accompanies that patient to the hospital, whilst the other person brings the motorcycle back to the dispatch center.
Very interesting. And another major, very interesting project that you are doing, I just came to know, is that you are monitoring the DTC bus drivers.
Yes, we did a very interesting study looking at, see, as we know that blood pressure is a huge big problem. And I think if you were to say which is the biggest risk factor for heart disease, strokes, kidney disease or eye disease, I would say the biggest risk factor is either tobacco or blood pressure.
Okay.
And blood pressure is controllable. You can't treat it, but you can bring it down and keep it controlled and prevent the risk factors. So this blood pressure is a huge problem in our country, and various surveys have done and have shown that it exists in anywhere between 25 to 50% of the population, which is huge, particularly above the age of 50, 55, 1 out of 2 may be having blood pressure. So that is a big problem. So now blood pressure has to be controlled, and we need to. So this was a small study which we did looking at continuous blood pressure monitoring. So you put a blood pressure cuff and connect it to a device which records blood pressure every 15 minutes automatically and gives a trend of 24 hours. So we put them on our DTC bus drivers. And we find that what we expected, that whilst driving in Delhi traffic, their blood pressure used to rise, but even in very young people who are not having blood pressure. It used to rise tremendously, and many of them would reach the range of a hypertensive range. So they would require treatment. So that was one. It is not yet published, but we're analyzing the data.
So it's something connected to, for example, occupational hazard.
Exactly.
One goal that we have taken up is the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. And then in that, there are at least 3 goals which are related to health: child health, maternal health, and control of diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS. Where are we? Will we reach the goal?
I think that's a very valid question, and this current job that I've joined is a huge responsibility. At the same time, it's a great opportunity because the Indian Council of Medical Research was established as an Indian Research Fund Association in 1911. So it's a more than 100-year-old organization which has been responsible for, the Bengal famine, the outbreaks of scurvy, looking at the thyroid disorders, fortifying salt, fortifying iron tablets for anemia, breaking the protein energy malnutrition myth, and it has contributed immensely. The DOTS program, the sanatorium program for tuberculosis, all has been initiated out of research that started here, the leptospirosis program. So this all initiated at the Indian Council of Medical Research. So this is the apex body wherein we have about 26 institutes within the country, right up from from Guwahati to Port Blair to Ahmedabad to Bhopal to anywhere in Kerala. So lots of institutes in the country, and they are focused on different areas, whether it be National Institute of Malaria Research or the National Leprosy Research Institute or the National Institute of Research in Tuberculosis, and the National Institute of Nutrition, which is just celebrating its 100 years this year. So, you're bringing back to your question about the Sustainable Development Goals. I think we are in the right direction. There is several programs that are in mission mode, and one of the nutrition that you mentioned, the Prime Minister has started a program called Poshan, which is the Prime Minister's overarching scheme on health and nutrition, and that is a 9,000 crore project looking at malnutrition in this country. And we are the back end providing what should be the nutrition values, what should be the nutrition problems, and where are the areas by conducting surveys, and we are guiding the Ministry of Health execute this program as far as nutrition is concerned. That still remains a problem. Undernutrition still remains a problem, although overnutrition has come out in the urban areas as a problem, but undernutrition still is our problem, and we need to tackle it. And this is a very passionate project of the Prime Minister himself. He is definitely at it that this has to be handled in a really a big way. In terms of the diseases that you mentioned, we in India have not yet taken care of our communicable diseases like malaria, filariae, leprosy, tuberculosis, and an epidemic of non-communicable diseases which we talked about in the first half of diabetes, hypertension, stroke, and you know, cancers is emerging. But coming back to the Sustainable Development Goals regarding malaria, tuberculosis, and leprosy. So malaria, we are doing well in our country. Our National Malaria Eradication Program with the Ministry of Health is doing phenomenally well, and our National Institute of Malaria Research is providing a lot of research inputs into this program in terms of how to, we are doing several pilot projects, whether it be in Orissa, whether it's been in the 5 states, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and Assam are really having this problem of malaria in a huge big way. And we are having pilot projects in each one of these states to look at how to reduce malaria. And India is doing well. And if you look at last year's report, there has been a dramatic fall in malaria in the country. There is a definite fall, and we are really excited about it. In terms of tuberculosis, the Prime Minister has said that instead of 2030, he has taken the challenge that we will eradicate tuberculosis by 2025. Second is diagnosis of tuberculosis. And for that diagnosis, an Indian company has developed a very simple molecular diagnostic which is competing with the best of the best in the world, called TrueDat. It is a Goa-based company, and that we are trying to get WHO pre-qualification. We've tested it out in India, but we're testing it out in the Southeast Asia region so that this can really be scaled up. And the third is a new study which we have just got clearance from, is the tuberculosis vaccine.
What are the major challenges that you foresee in terms of health for India?
Yeah, I think the major challenges, if you look at the communicable diseases, last year we had an epidemic. We had the Nipah virus, which is a new virus, and the ICMR with the Ministry of Health and the Kerala state government performed phenomenally well in containing that. And that was, I think, a huge successful success story of the Indian healthcare or public sector healthcare of the country, which is not highlighted. The second was the canine distemper virus, which affected the lions, and that was again contained so well by the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and the Indian Council of Medical Research and the National Institute of Virology, which is part of our network, and that worked phenomenally well. We had the Zika epidemic, and the first time the full genome sequencing of the Zika was done in India, and we clearly demonstrated that it is different from the Brazilian strain, and microcephaly is not a problem, which was a fear and a paranoia in the society, and we were able to quell that. So emerging viruses remains a big worry. The non-communicable diseases and air pollution and its effects on various aspects of health remain a worry as far as the coming years are concerned.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. One interesting society that you formed, you named it as SLIM. Can you tell us what that philosophy is?
Yes, that is the philosophy. Okay, first let me tell you the acronym. Yeah. The acronym is SLIM, which means Society for Less Investigative Medicine. Now, typically what has happened in society at large today is that the general population are being driven or communicated a lot by Dr. Google, as I say. So Dr. Google is interfering with a lot of our patient-doctor trust. And if one has an infirmity, he goes to a physician, it has to start with a level of trust. Now, if you get all your tests done before going to the doctor, then the doctors also get biased by those tests. So we formed a society, but it's in its infancy, looking at how to reduce too many tests to be done.
Very, I think it's an important point that you mentioned, that in this world where access to information is huge, the Google doctor perhaps is not actually directing you to the right direction, perhaps only creating more anxiety.
Yes, at the same time, I have nothing against tests, I have nothing against artificial intelligence, nothing against technology being used, but it cannot be replacing the physician. It has to be an assist more to the physician rather than to the patient.
That's I think a very important point for today's time, and we had a very wonderful conversation here. Thank you for your time. Keep watching Eureka. We'll come back with another interesting conversation next week.